Hi, you're with Julian on the brown note in the studio doing an album review or two. This one for Yahweh Nailgun and the album 45 Pounds, and Yahweh as in YHWH, which is the Hebrew word for God. And the last time I remember encountering it in music was one of the best songs ever by Vampire Weekend. Now, this has been one of the big breakthrough albums of the year as far as a band that had absolutely no profile 6 months ago, or at least outside of the circles they moved. American indie band who are Zach Borzone on vocals, which is coming across often a little bit like death metal. Sagweave Rosenstock on guitar. I wonder if that's a relative of Mr. Jeff Rosenstock. Jack Tobias on synthesizers and electronics, and probably the most notable takeaway that everyone has said about this band is Sam Pickard on drums. This is a drum-led project where everything else seems to fit the lead of the drums. In particular, Pickard picks out, I don't know what the name for the drum is, but there's like a timpani or something like that, but where you can adjust the level of the drum, which has virtually no reverb at all, to make the notes change, which is the most. They have an incredibly indicative sound that isn't like anyone else. I referenced reviewing this that it's reminded me a bit of Trout Mask Replica by Captain Beefheart, in that it doesn't really have a specific precedent. It's an album that you have to live with until you're comfortable with it to get the benefit out of it, because it doesn't sound like any, even with the British indie spiky guitar bands like Black Midi and Squid and so on, they sound much more like rock music than this sounds like rock music. It's definitely ploughing a unique field on its own. It's only just come out, and it's incredibly short. The songs themselves are brutally short, often sub 2 minutes. And the whole album is a whopping 21 minutes, 4 seconds long. The opening track, and this review will probably take as long as the actual album to listen to. Penetrator, the opening track, has the trademark of the octopus armed drummer, who goes nuts throughout this. There are acts like Battles and math rock people that are, I guess, more referential to this band's music than, say, normal indie or alt rock, and particularly bands that have got like a virtuoso drummer on display. And the electronics are heavy, acidy synths. It's difficult at times to know whether the motif you're listening to has come out of the guitar player or the synths, or maybe they're just blended together, because there are definitely noises that sound like they might have been played on a guitar, and other times the same noises sound like they're being played on a synth. So it is a bit difficult for me to tell. It's a very metallic sounding album as well. It's this is where reverb goes to die. Everything's got such a short attack or decay, whichever way around it is. It's not like produced like Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, I can tell you that. It's a new musical paradigm, and you know, they're a very unique proposition, and one that's made a big impact already. Castrato Raw, they've got some moody song titles going on here, and some pretty bleak lyrics when you can actually understand what's being said. I've written down here, Vampire Weekend via the Cramps. It's got a decent chorus on it. Sometimes their music is very hooky as well. And this one had quite a lot of development for a song that only lasts for 2 minutes. And they're quite frenetic songs as well. So you can get quite a long way into one of their tracks in 20 seconds. There is some more Pain Foundation, track 3. It's got some real dub heavy noise, very warped atonal, and a memorable chant of "That is pain." And what is it with blast beats at the moment? I love blast beats. They're everywhere. And the next album I'm going to review is a completely different area of music, and again using blast beats. There's a great industrial pattern on Animal Death Already Breathing. Another charming title. And the album that the artist that I most relate to this project is the fantastic Kim Gordon solo albums. Kim Gordon, Exosonic Youth, who released a brilliant solo album last year, which had lots of like the most warped hip hop instrumentals you'll ever hear. And that kind of is that Danny Brown Atrocity Exhibition sort of warped beats going on, which I think I really like. And not for the only time on the album, Ultra Shade Beat My Blood Dog Down has a vibe that made me think of some of the instrumentals in David Lynch's Fire Walk With Me, particularly this amazing one I think called The Pink Room, which is this fever dream, nightmarish thing where they're in this like dive bar music in a David Lynch movie, which is great. The quite funky Iron Feet, really nice warped synth pattern on that and guitar riff. It's quite funky, and the toms go absolutely nuts on Tear Pusher, to the extent it reminded me of the iconic theme music to Miami Vice. And the drums are like a machine gun on that one. And the longest track on the album, a whopping 3 minutes. It's the only one actually to get over 3 minutes. There's a lot of heavy bass on Sickle Walk, and the vocals tuned down from Screamo. Death metal is another thing that seems to be creeping into a lot of music. And this guy would make a great drummer in any prog rock band, any prog metal band would kill to have this drummer on board. 9, probably the most progressive of the tracks, even if it's one of the less interesting one. It probably has the most development. That one's called Blackout, and then it ends with The Brazen Changer, another very short 1.5-minute track, but very hooky. They've got a really good use of hooks on this album, but very interesting to have the drummer as the lead instrument pretty much on every track. So it's a great album. It is not as substantial as some of the great albums that have come out this year, but it's not trying to be or occupy that space given its 21-minute length, over 10 tracks. But a very, very solid and, more importantly, perhaps incredibly original and interesting album from Yahweh Nailgun, £45, a solid 8.5 out of 10.